I'm going to talk a little bit about the company that started now 3 years ago. Some of you might know it as it's actually the third time that I come to CopenhagenJS to talk a little bit about what we do. And we're here to focus on climate change. I'm going to speak a little bit about the platform that we're building, and really what we're trying to do is to be able to empower many people to do something about climate change, and especially developers. So please interrupt me if anything is unclear, if you have any questions here. A little bit about myself. I'm a math guy. I'm half French, half Danish, studying in both countries. I've been at IBM Research. I've been at Google, working mostly on energy projects, smart grids and whatnot, and was at an AI startup in France. And 3 years ago, I thought, now I think I know things or two about starting a company. Now I want to actually put those skills to good use. And for me, the biggest challenge of our time is climate change. So what could we do about this? And to set the scene, I'm not going to do a big expose on climate change, but this is a graph that you might not have seen so much. It shows CO2 emissions since a very long time, actually 17,000 years. And you see the beautiful spike we have up here, which was 2017. And those are actually concentration in the atmosphere. And the thing you have to remember about CO2 is that it stays in the atmosphere between centuries and millennia, which means that everything we put out there right now is going to be there for children, for our grandchildren, and so on. Hence why it's so important not to stabilize emissions, but to get them to absolute zero. It's like waste we're putting out there that is extremely complicated to get back from the atmosphere. Hence why it's such a big challenge. How many of you have seen this picture in the news lately? Okay, quite a few. So this is Greenland a week ago, I think, exactly. It's a Danish meteorologist, if I'm correct, that was going in Greenland to get data from the DMI center. And you see the water here, he's actually sliding on the glacier itself, and you have 30 to 50 centimeters of water on top of the glacier because of the extreme temperatures out there. Greenland has taken already 3 degrees of warming in 100 years, which is completely crazy. The rest of the planet has taken approximately 1 degree. So it's warming 3 times faster. And I apologize, you probably can't see it really on the screen, but if you look at the lower left side, you have a graph that basically shows how quickly it melts. And in the last month, it's been melting much faster than any model has been looking at. So those are some of the worrying signs. And I think every time I give a speech, I can take a different picture and a different event because they're just happening all the time. So the thing is, we all know it's not going super well. We all want to do something. We all care about this. But it's very hard to figure out what you can do because it's a complicated issue. It touches all aspects of our lives. And it's too cumbersome to understand. So we need something simple that can just give us an overview. And luckily, data is here to help us. So what if we had an app that could automatically tell us what is the footprint of everything I do in my life, such that I can take better decisions, figure out what is bullshit and what is not, what is greenwashing and what is not. What if all this could be automatic? And furthermore, what if we build a community around this, people that build this together, and if this app needs to know everything about our life in order to figure out what our footprint is, it needs to handle privacy and be built in a privacy by design principle first. And so this is what we have set out to construct. It's an app that is called Tomorrow that calculates automatically the climate impact of every choice that I make. It does so by connecting to apps and services that you already use. And I'm going to drill a little bit more into that. So the way it works is that you have a screen that looks a little bit like an app store where you connect different services. So for example, you can connect Rejsekortet here in Denmark, you connect your card, and as soon as you check in and check out, you get a small notification in the app that tells you, hey, you just took this trip, here's the amount of emissions, and then it pops up in the left screen. The contrast is not super big, but you can see this like bubbles of varying sizes. The size of each bubble showcases the emissions there, and you can compare them to other activities. Just to give you an order of magnitude, you can see some planes on the left side. Those are all the planes that I've taken in the last couple of months. And you see some very, very small dots, small bubbles. Those are like my daily electricity usage. That gives you already kind of an interesting aspect of where you should be focusing. So if there's one thing to remember from everything that I say, it's like, be cautious about the plane, take the train if you can. This is probably the biggest climate killer. And you can see as soon as you drill into the activities, you start getting insights. For example, on the electricity usage, you can figure out when you use your electricity, how green the electricity was at that time. Did the wind blow or not? Those kind of things. And you can start comparing with alternatives. So that's the second step, which is about exploring, learning, and understanding. And then the third step, which is about taking action. One simple thing you can do is compensate for your carbon emissions. We're working with different partners that if you'd like to automatically compensate, we'll put you in touch with them. And the last thing that I'm personally very excited about is that you can start marking your activities as professional, because a lot of the planes that I actually take are for my work. And so it should be completely natural that inside the company we have a dashboard that shows us the carbon emissions of my team, and that the team can take action, and that the team can compensate for the emissions, and maybe do a remote meeting instead of taking that plane for this one meeting that is happening, right? So how does the app work? And this is where the community kicks in. Everything runs on the device. So it means that it's a device here that has a bunch of integrations you can see at the top. All those integrations connect directly to the API where the data lives. So for example, in the example with the Reise code, we have a small piece of JavaScript that is coded, that connects in JavaScript to directly the Reise code API. Doesn't go through one of our servers, so there's no way we can access the data in that sense. It stays on the device. Then we have some data processing. We envision in the later future to have some NLP if we directly start parsing receipts, for example. Then you have some carbon models, because as soon as you know that I took the train from Copenhagen to Esbjerg, you need to figure out what the footprint of this thing is. And there's a lot of literature out there, there's a lot of scientists working on this, and we need to be able to open source all of this in order to gain the trust of everyone and collaborate on making the best models possible. So this is also open sourced. And then of course we show it in the app. So we've identified a lot of different integrations, have already built a couple of them. The app is in beta actually, so if you're interested, come see me after and we can give you access. So we have stuff like electric vehicles that are connected. So if you have an electric vehicle, you can see exactly when it charged, how clean the electricity was at that time. Reise code, we have Uber. I know we don't have Uber in Denmark, but that's just too bad. We're looking to integrate into other taxi apps. We have a system that's called, so there's an app called TripIt that scans your emails and figures out what are the planes and the train receipts that you have. And through those, we automatically populate all your travels in the app. And lastly, we have smart meters. We have a partnership with a Danish electricity retailer called Barry. And if you have a smart meter at home, then every evening you can see exactly when you used electricity and how clean the electricity was at that time. And we foresee to be looking into groceries. There's a system that's very interesting. There's actually a company that is called Storebox that digitalizes all the receipts from all your supermarket purchases. If we can integrate with them, it will be quite cool. As soon as you pay in the supermarket, you get a notification and you have your receipt with exactly the footprint on it. Could tell you exactly what you could do better in terms of consumption behavior. And the last thing is restaurants or even fitness apps where you actually track everything that you're eating. This is also the last leg that we want to cover. So the thing is, all of those integrations are open source, and I want to walk you through a little bit how those things work and how we're designing the APIs around this thing. So the first thing to understand is that the whole app is in React Native, which means that we can work on a completely 100% JavaScript ecosystem for everything, which is very exciting because a lot of people that are starting to code or even experts know JavaScript, so we have a very broad coverage of skill set here. There's 3 functions you need to code if you want to build an integration. And they're pretty simple. There's a function called connect. The job of that function is just to say, how do I get access to user credentials in order to be able to fetch data that I need? So for example, we provide you with a function that will, I can actually show a detail. Yeah, there you go. So you can see here that the connect function gives you a couple of methods here. There's one which is called request login. And so as soon as you execute that promise that you started, the app will show you this screen to the right, asks for username, password, and then the integration can grab this username and password. You can call a login function, which you'd have to code yourself to authenticate to the system, and then you return a state that is to be persisted. The idea is that you would save an OAuth token or something else in order to be able to refetch some data later on and to avoid asking for the credentials every time. So that leads me to the second step, the collect method. The collect method is called regularly in the background by the app. fetches the data and tries to check if there's new activities that have happened. You can see here it's passed a state, which is the state of the login function. So you have access to user credentials. Here you can see there's a logging function. We call a login again just to double check that we're still allowed to actually fetch some data. And then we have a function here called fetch all activities, just fetches all the data. And you just have to return it in a very simple format that is described here. Just need a date time, what type of activity is it, how long was it, if you can provide how many kilometers, that's even better. We can calculate a more accurate footprint. And then inside the app, you have a small debugging screen that enables you to look at all the log messages. You can put some warning and so on. Because of course, if everything runs on the device, it starts to become increasingly complicated to debug as you can't just upload everything to a server and replicate the whole debugging procedure. So we have started developing a small playground that enables you to code those things locally, and then you can commit them to our GitHub, and we'll just integrate it into the app onto the next release. And there you go. So it's really not complicated to actually use. And if you want to give it a go afterwards, feel free to come to us. We have someone who has been extremely interested in this, who is developing a whole new version of the playground, very sexy, as part of a master thesis program. I wanted to show it today, but I didn't have time to put it in the presentation. But feel free to check it out later on our GitHub. So everything is on GitHub. There's a big guide, basically one file per integration if you're interested in that. We also have the carbon models. I think it's not the same audience here, but we're actually also going to universities that are working with carbon models to get them to integrate all of these things in this platform. And hopefully also make sure that anyone who's building a product that wants to showcase something about CO2 can just use the code that we've made such that it becomes universal, used by everyone, and gain scale. Because this problem is so big, there's no way we can be the only ones trying to fix it. We need to build a whole community worldwide of everyone helping each other on building all those models. Simple trick, we use Git submodules. We have a private repository where we have all of our proprietary code. We have a public repository with all the carbon models, all the integrations. And every time we want to do a new release, we basically check out the submodule to the latest the latest public version, and then we integrate it completely into the app. Do you guys know what submodules are? Yes, maybe? Okay, submodules is a pretty neat way of integrating one repository into another one. And the thing you actually do is that inside the parent repository, you create a sort of a pointer to the other repository at a given commit. So it enables you to freeze this other repository in time. And as you add commits to it, you can then say, now I manually change my pointer to the latest version, and now you can roll out a new version. So it's a pretty neat way of synchronizing two repositories together. So we need all of you, we need all of the developers out there to help us build this platform and get it out to the world, because we want to map all of the emissions in the world, and we realize we definitely cannot do it alone. So anything that you would like to do, please come to me. We're starting this whole initiative. We want to build this thing together, so anyone who wants to get involved would be very welcome. We have a Slack group as well that you can join, and a GitHub repository. And the last thing I'll just say, to be a bit provocative, is that unfortunately the best minds of our generation, I think, are not working on the most important problems of our time. The internet is basically funded by ads, so the most brilliant minds of our generation are working on ads, and that's unfortunate because we have a much bigger problem to solve, which is climate change right now. So take a look at the links, come talk to me after, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you. It's extremely hot.
Somebody have a question?
Yeah?
Do you have any examples of integrations that you would like to see there, or something that the community is trying to do?
Yes, so actually on our GitHub page, we have a bunch of issues. There's a lot of them with all the kind of integrations that we would like help on. There are some on smart meters. Like if you are a customer at Ørsted, for example, we have identified how to build it. So if you want to hack around or learn to code during this, feel free to do it. We have something as well with Nemly.com. So if you order your groceries online from them, we have a project set up to do this. And we have a bunch of other ideas as well. So we have identified quite a few of them. Yes? There's a lot of other projects that are starting like that, not with the same tech background and the openness and the community aspect of it as we have. You have another project which is almost 10 years old, where someone was building open source carbon models at scale. Unfortunately, the company got funded but never really made it, simply because it wasn't the right time. I know some people in Germany, Chris Adams, that is working on building something that looks like a bit NPM packages as carbon models. So you could just say, I actually want the carbon model for cars, so just NPM install carbon model cars, and then it goes in. So we're also working with them. They're quite cool. Yes? Yeah, so the question is about how do we make sure that we motivate people to understand and change their behavior instead of just pouring as much money into planting trees, which obviously doesn't fix the problem. And there was actually the Norwegian scandal beginning of last week, I think, where it was actually shown that they're compensating in a not so good way. So it's raising a lot of questions. We have like a 3-step approach where we say, we try to educate people, so showcasing just an overview of the emissions, that's already pretty powerful. Second step, give them the tools to change, so recommendations, what else could you do, and so on. And the third step is compensation, but it's really only the third step at the end of the ladder. So I guess it's really much about how you communicate about the product and how you design your product in a fashion that motivates this change of behavior. The best answer I can give you is try the app when it gets out, and hopefully you'll see that it's very much geared about giving you the tools and the information. Something else that might be an answer to your question is that we're focusing a lot on the social aspects of it. We believe that if we can empower you to change and empower your community to change, your community being your family, your work, this is very much empowering than just paying yourself out of it, right? For us? Yes, so there's an interesting concept that's called the North Star KPI, which is basically trying to identify a metric that is one single metric for success of your company. And the one metric of success that we're currently looking at, and it's a work in progress, is how much carbon in all of people's lives have we been able to map and explain to them and showcase, right? So our success in principle is how much can we showcase, can we map out and make visible, because it's very hard to actually quantify change of behavior. So our first step in terms of success is to map things out. But in the longer run, if you think more philosophically, if you want to fix climate change, you need a well-engineered carbon tax. So I believe the success is when at some point we have the government doing our job, we have a carbon tax, then this company doesn't need to exist and we can go on and do other things. Yes? We don't need to because it's directly on the app. So if the data is only on the app and we don't have anything on a server, basically there's no problem. Our company doesn't touch the data. We don't have any problem with erasing the data because we don't have it. You can uninstall the app, then the data is gone. So later on, we're going to be able to propose to users to have backups, to be able to share data with friends and so on. There we will definitely have a GDPR issue. But our approach to it is very much to be, opt-in, transparent about what we upload, and so on and so forth. The way it should be done, to be honest. There's one here, and then two. You had one.
Yeah. So that was actually about sharing with friends. So have you thought about, or are you planning to add gamification? So being able to compete with your friends, like or
for sure. No, definitely. We are looking into that. There's a bunch of privacy issues as well with this, but we foresee probably a step where you can upload anonymous data. So we just know your total footprint. We don't know what it was, like which plane and so on. And then you can start comparing and saying, oh, I'm actually in the 10% best people with respect to transportation in my city or in my friends group, right? So that's something we're looking into. And last. Sorry, yeah, we're closing a funding round right now, which means that we'll be hiring as well. So again, if anyone is interested, please come and talk to us. Yeah.
Tiny question.
Yes.
When is the next tomorrow hackathon?
That's a good question. As soon as we have the money to buy pizzas. No, we definitely want to organize hackathons around this subject. And I foresee also that it's a great learning opportunity because the entry barrier is quite low in terms of what you need to be able to code. You don't need to spin off a mobile app. You don't need to know React Native. You just need to know JavaScript and be able to do some HTTP requests. Then you can start getting done, right? So yes, it's something we will be doing and organizing in the future. We'll get in touch with you.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.